Hi, my name's Dave, and you're by Scale Modelers for Scale Modelers. Available on iTunes, Stitcher, and all good podcast apps. This episode is a follow-up from our last episode talking about building aircraft. In this episode, we're going to be looking at painting, decaling, weathering, and displaying your pride and joy. Fine Scale Modeler is proud to support On The Bench. Fine Scale Modeler is the world's most recognised modelling magazine and is available in all good newsagents or wherever you purchase your magazines. Alternatively, go to their website www.finescale.com and take out a subscription for either a digital or traditional magazine. Why not treat yourself to both? Go on, you deserve it. Subscribe now at www.finescale.com. A huge round of applause for our latest two Patreon supporters. Give it up for Chris Golubsky and Fred Fernandez. It is the support of people like these two legends that help us offset our publishing, production, and equipment costs. You too can join this League of Heroes by going to www.patreon.com/onthebench and pledge any amount from $1 upwards. And while we're on the subject of Patreons, I'd like to congratulate Robert McCrossan. You have been chosen as the lucky winner of our AK weathering pencil set. Robert, I'll be shooting you an email very shortly and organising to get them shipped to you next week. Congratulations, mate. Well done. And it's great to see that our listeners are getting outfitted with their very own On The Bench logoed apparel. If you want to stand out at your next club meeting or model show wearing a stylish t-shirt, sweatshirt or hoodie with the On The Bench logo, then go to shop.spreadshirt.com.au/onthebench. Or go to our Facebook page and click on the pinned link at the top of the page. Now let's get on with the show. And welcome to the show. G'day, Ian.
G'day, Dave. G'day, listeners.
G'day, Julian.
Hello.
All right, gents, what's been happening since the last episode?
Oh, finally, over the weekend, in between getting everything ready for Expo this coming weekend, I managed to get all the parts cleaned up and ready for painting for the Moosaroo Challenge.
Oh, you've started on that?
Yes.
Lovely.
Yes, all the parts are off the sprues, catalogued, cleaned up, and ready to shoot some paint on them.
How'd you go cutting up the sprues? No issues with it at all?
Look, I've got to say the one thing about that kit, it's so well engineered.
Yeah.
They really did their homework on it.
Oh, Bandai. So what do you expect?
Exactly.
It's sort of the Gundam version of Tamiya.
Yes.
In some ways, they're a bit better on the engineering side of things.
Yeah, because it snaps together and snap fits.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to need any glue at all.
I just put a bit there just to hold it.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
That'd be about it, yeah.
So the Moosaroo Cup competition is up and running.
Running, yes.
And the boys over there have bought...
a 68 Shelby GT 500.
There you go.
Which, in my opinion, is a good choice of car.
Oh, okay. Well, off and running.
Yep.
Julian, what have you been up to?
Not a lot, actually. I've been trying to get my paperwork in order for my competition entries this weekend.
Yep.
Other than that, testing out the pencils you gave us.
Yes, you guys had some homework, didn't you?
Yes.
Testing out the new AK weathering pencils. So do tell.
Do you want to go first?
Well, basically, my main thing about them is you just got more control. You got so much more control than using a paintbrush.
Yep.
For where you actually apply them.
So how did, in what tell the audience how you
with
actually
a paintbrush, you put it on there and it automatically, if you depending how hard you press it, it can spread out.
And you push it around.
With a paintbrush. With this, you just it's like getting a notepad and just drawing on a notepad.
So you used it dry?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it worked well.
Julian?
And see, I use mine wet.
Yep.
I tested in quite a few different ways, actually. So, for example, I tested doing like a streaking grime kind of effect.
Yes.
And I did that by drawing dry
Yep.
lines, vertical lines on I just had a kit lying around that I tested it out on. And then I got a brush with some water on it and I just sort of feathered it and it doesn't take much water to take the edge off it. In fact, I found you could even do it with just your thumb. You just need to take the sort of like the actual build up of the stuff so that it's just left with a thin layer on the actual vehicle, right?
So it's almost like using a damp brush more than anything else.
Yeah, definitely
Yep.
damp.
Yeah, the wetter the brush, the more you'll take off.
Oh, because when if you go to the AK Interactive site, they'll on YouTube channel, they'll have lots of little demonstrations of them dipping the pencil in water and then dabbing and such with the pencil.
Yep.
And it's able, when you do it that way, you can get lots of thick opacity buildup. Good for almost layering on mud and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You got to be very careful with how much water you put on because you do not need much at all. It just really wants to sort of liquefy.
Okay.
Almost. It doesn't seem like you lose much on the actual pencil, right? But you get a lot of color out of it.
Yep.
Once it's dry, you can add water back into it and it'll move again. So it's almost like a water-based version of an enamel paint or enamel wash.
So both of you used it on kits that you've already finished and built, and so obviously you've done your you've done your gloss already, and then you've gone back and over and done your matte or whatever. So would you recommend you do a matte over the top of this, or do you think you'd lose it?
Definitely.
Yep.
Yeah, you got to get
A gloss finish, you'll lose it straight away.
Yep.
You need something for it to grip onto.
Yeah. So I tried lots of different colors, and you can get it to go very you can keep sort of jabbing it into a corner or something, and it'll build up and be it's almost like you've layered the area with lots of pigments, and then hit it with a pigment fixer, and it's all caked on.
Yep.
You can do a bit of that. I'm not sure how much of it you want to do because you lose your pencil pretty quickly, I think.
Yeah, you go through it pretty quick.
I mean, it is good for small detail applications in a way that a wash or some other weathering product where you want to cover 8 wheels.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? You would use a wash for something like that.
Yep.
Right, but you wouldn't use this pencil for that. Otherwise, you'd go through a whole pencil in no time. So it's good for small applications. Yeah. Good, and it takes a little while to get used to. But I would say try to put as little water on as possible. Have one droplet of water that you then occasionally dab it into to get it to work in that sense.
So recommendation: thumbs up, thumbs down.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Some of the colors come out a little bit differently than displayed. One of mine, I had a dark green, and that dark green looks more deep green, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's actually very saturated. Not really what you'd sort of use with most military applications. It's a bit too vibrant.
Okay.
So, I mean, some of them are very good. The sand, I haven't tried the silver one yet. That's the tricky one. See, I actually bought a bunch of these separate to the ones that you gave me.
Right.
I've got a silver one because I wanted to use it for chipping aluminium on planes.
Yep.
I haven't used that yet, so I can't tell you what that's like.
Well, the gunmetal one's good.
Is it?
Yeah, I just used the gunmetal one and just highlighting some barrels on one of my aircraft and just put it on there and leave it.
Oh, yeah.
Don't touch it. Just use it just to rub off onto the end of the gun barrels and boom, brings them right up.
All right. Actually, I lie. I did use it. I just forgot about it. I did. I just ran it over almost if you were dry brushing with silver.
Yeah.
It was sort of like an effect like that, and it was all right. Didn't get to see if it was too sparkly or anything though.
Well, one of our Patreon supporters, Robert McCrossan, was randomly selected to pick up the remaining 5, which I'll be shipping across to him as soon as he responds to my email. So well done, Robert. Enjoy playing with them when you get them. Anything else new or what you've been doing?
Sorry, I do have one more thing that I just remembered. Sharpening them. I attempted to sharpen mine with a somewhat blunt knife. Don't do that. Don't do that at all.
Get a proper pencil sharpener.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I never tried a pencil sharpener, so I can't speak to that.
You got to get my pencil sharpener. I've got the best pencil sharpener out.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, it's like an undead doll's head, and you jab the pencil into its eyeball, and you twist it, and then to get the shavings out, you press this button at the back, and the tongue comes out and spits out all the pencil shavings.
Oh, very cool.
Where did you get this?
Oh, I can't remember. I've had it for many years.
So I tried to use you try to sharpen it with a blunt knife, and it almost like fragments in the same way like a crayon will.
Yeah.
It's very soft.
Yeah.
It's a very soft pencil.
Cool. All right. Apart from that, we've just been getting ready for Expo this weekend, which is coming up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my information from my the what do you call it? The competition build, that's all done. Everything's boxed up.
Excellent.
So Friday afternoon, knock off work, go home, have a quick feed, and load up the car and drop everything off.
Well, lucky for me, I was sick last weekend and not this weekend, so that's a blessing in disguise. But
Yeah,
geez, I was
definitely.
sick. I was on my back for about 4 days. Just a really nasty cold. Just knocked me out. Still got a bit of the left over.
Yeah,
so
bit of the
if
loogie hanging around.
So if I sort of move away from the mic and cough, excuse me.
As long as you don't pass it on, Dave.
No, I won't.
Yes,
well,
that's what I'm worried
about. No, it's not. I'm not infectious anymore. So this is just you're infectious in the first, 4 days, like when you're sweating and you got the chills and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
After that, no. So if I bite you, you'll be right. Nothing's going to happen.
Please don't.
A little bit of housekeeping, which I need to address. If I can find where I do it. Here we go. So back on episode 49, we did a show on Aussie Armour. And we've had a few people writing in saying that there were some mistakes and inaccuracies, etc., which, fine. I'm quite happy to get feedback and everything and quite happy to address that. So what I'm planning to do to make up for those errors is, rather than going back and rehash that particular episode, moving to the future, I think what we'll do is we'll select one of each particular type. Like we might look at the M113 Battle Taxi, for example, the APC, and looking at getting somebody in who actually used to work on them and drive them, as well as being a model builder as well. So that'll be pretty cool. And then we'll revisit the Abrams, and we'll look at it not just from the Australian point of view, but from the worldwide sort of point of view and all that. So I think we'll tackle fixing those little mistakes up that way. Yep. And as always, more than happy to have your feedback, guys. Love it. So if you want to drop us an email, you can send it to onthebench64@gmail.com. Okay, well, I've got no information about upcoming model shows. So again, everybody out there,
Except for Melbourne Model Expo.
Well, except for Melbourne Model Expo, yeah. It's everybody out there. If you want to promote your show, drop us an email at onthebench64@gmail.com, and more than happy to promote your show wherever it may be around the world. All right, well, shall we get on to what's new in the modelling world before
Sounds good to me.
dive in and talk about part two about building aircraft? We're going to be talking about painting and all sorts of good
Painting,
stuff
weathering.
there.
Yes.
Displaying.
Yep.
Decals.
Yep.
Okay. Let's have a look at news from Trumpeter. And they have announced for their June release, it's a Russian 9P78-1 in 1/35th scale. And it's actually just a mobile short-range ballistic missile system that's produced and deployed by the Russians. It's an 8-wheel vehicle, and, geez, the Russians do these things really good. They just look so sexy and so...
It's a box on wheels, Dave.
it looks very Mad Max-ish. It wouldn't be out of place in Mad Max.
Well, you'd have to modify it for Mad Max. But
Yeah, but it still looks darn good, doesn't it? I don't know.
Well, I think the sort of like transporter version would probably be more ideal for Mad Max. But
Yeah.
this is like their modified variant that carries ballistic missiles and things.
Russians just do very agricultural and
Yeah.
I think it looks very Cold War.
Yeah,
You know, like lots of big missiles. You know,
everything out of Russia looks like the Cold
big
War
red
still.
stars on everything. You know.
So if you enjoy building that sort of stuff, it comes with rubber wheels or rubber tires, I should say. Some etch, a little bit of cable there, I believe. Total parts 900 plus, and you get the full drivetrain assembly complete with engine, transmission, differential housing, and suspension units.
Quite a lot of photo etch on that.
Yeah, there is, surprisingly. Next up, still on Trumpeter, and we have the Schleswig Holsten Battleship 1908 in 1/350 scale. The length of this kit is going to be 367 millimeters with a beam of 67 millimeters. Have 12 sprues. Total parts count 470. This is one of the
Pre World War One dreadnought.
yeah, but the sad part about it is when she was built, she was almost outclassed straight away by all the new ones that were sort of being churned out. It had a very interesting sort of life, this particular ship. So it was laid down in 1905 and commissioned into the fleet about 3 years later.
That looks cool.
But I do believe it actually survived the war and continued on in service in Germany after the war, all the way through until the Second World War, when the German Kriegsmarine went and used it to bombard parts of Poland in the opening stages of World War II.
Yes.
So it's a really interesting kit.
It's a long history for a ship.
It is, yeah. She subsequently, what happened to her in the end? She's bombarded, blah, blah, blah. She was used training vessel majority of the war and was sunk by the British bombers in Gotthafen in December 1944. And then the Russians used it as a beached naval target after the war. So, very cool. Nice looking ship if you like your pre-World War One dreadnoughts. And it should make a nice little kit.
I like it.
In 1/72nd scale, MiG-31 BM. Russians are still flying these things, these MiG-31s.
Oh, yeah.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Was it the MiG-31 that scared the heck out of the Americans and sort of pushed on the development of the F-15?
No idea.
Or sort of worked in parallel? I don't know. Happy to take some advice on
Yes,
that. So,
you will, Dave. I'm not up on the modern military jets.
yeah, I'm sure it was the 31 that gave them the
We're in the
impetus.
Foxbat.
Yeah. So this will make a nice little kit. There's a heck of a lot of decals to go with this, or decals, however you want to pronounce that.
Stickers.
Oh, not really stickers.
Well,
are they?
since you're building a Gundam, there is a
That-
clear
yes.
distinction because they sometimes do come with
And this
stickers.
one does come with stickers.
So yeah. All right. Coming up next is a Russian TOS-1 multiple rocket launcher, modified 1989 in 1/35th scale. This is basically just a
T-72 tank chassis with a
Yes.
rocket
Yep.
launcher
Rocket-
packs instead of the turret.
24 barrels rocket launchers whacked on top. Again, looks pretty cool.
It does look pretty good.
Comes with some interesting looking camouflage suggestions there. So this will make a nice little addition to your collection if you enjoy building that sort of stuff.
Yeah, Russian armour.
Russian armour is good. All right. I think that's it from Trumpeter. Let's now have a look at Revell. Oh, geez, Revell. All right. First of all, from Revell, we have a Dingo 2 GE A2.3, which is basically a armoured medium truck. So it's a modern transport vehicle which is equipped with a weapon station for patrol and operations within the German forces and is used in Afghanistan.
I'll never understand why foreign militaries like to use the dingo, a dog native to Australia, to name their vehicles.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And yet we don't have anything that's named a dingo.
Well,
No,
no,
we
we
don't.
don't have anything named a German Shepherd or an Alsatian, do we?
Well, in Germany, would they call it a German Shepherd? Or they're just called a shepherd.
Called an Alsatian, wouldn't they? Mm. That's where they came from, Alsatia.
Could be.
Als.
Yeah. Well, I'll take your word for it.
I don't know much about that.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, so I don't know anything about dogs.
This kit, if you look at the pictures of them actually over in out in the field, the tyres are actually quite bulbous down in the bottom, and yet the tyres that you get with the kit, they're perfectly, almost look like they're made of helium, so the model's almost floating. So you're going to have to address that when you actually build it. You know, it's
a nice looking kit, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it'll appeal for those guys who like doing their military trucks and stuff like that.
The canvas sort of effect on the rear looks actually pretty good.
Yeah. Where the canvas looks taut across the frame. Yeah, that does look quite good, actually. In 1/24th scale, it's a 56 Chevy Custom. Ian.
Yes. I'm just wondering if it's the old reboxing. If it's a reboxing of the old kit, if it is, stay away.
It's a Chevrolet Bel Air manufactured from 53 onwards. And
no, it's not the old one.
It's brand new.
Yep. Yeah, the old one had opening doors and it was an absolute pig of a kit.
Oh, there you go. Something to tempt you, this one?
No, not really.
Oh, you giving up on your cars?
No. Just not a big Chevy fan. Not to say Chevys aren't good cars, it just doesn't rock my boat.
It comes with a multi-part engine, many chrome parts, and building instructions and comprehensive decals.
For a really loud paint scheme.
Yeah, it looks pretty hot, although this one is showing us here in black.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is an interesting little kit. It's a B25 Mitchell. It's called an Easy Kit. It's in 1/72nd scale. Number of parts, 44.
Oh, that's not many.
And a simple,
made for the kids.
Yeah, simple, easy click system which guarantees quick success. It's multicoloured, and the components are joined together and decorated with stickers by simply plugging them together. Painting's not necessary. So we're seeing some pictures here, and it's just a great way to introduce young kids to the hobby.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
You know, something they can take away, snap together pretty quickly, get a reasonable facsimile of the, real thing, and, that'll impress a...
Yeah, and the kids can run around the lounge room going...
impress a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old. Oh. In 1/32nd scale, we have an FW190A-8
Sternbach.
Now...
Sternbachs, they were the special attack ones.
Okay, so...
Ram Jaegers.
These are the ones that had the additional armour and put on them.
Correct.
And everything. Right,
yes.
Okay.
So this is a reboxing with a bit of extra shit.
I would say it would be a reboxing.
Pardon my language.
Language pardoned. It comes with movable ailerons and rudders, movable propeller, choice of normal or curved cockpit hood, detailed cockpit, and the rear tail wheel can be either in extended or retracted position. Also, it says it has a detailed chassis and a large display stand.
It is a large display stand. It's a great big saucer.
Yeah.
What intrigues me, and it's not about the model itself, but here's my thing about Revell. So this model, as it's being shown, has been extremely well built and well painted. It doesn't look toy-like, where the other models that they always show look toy-like.
Mm-hmm.
I reckon that Revell would do themselves a big service if they either had their kits finished to this standard to show what you're buying, or just have it in bare plastic.
Yeah,
not the in-between sort of stuff that they normally...
Now looking at the photos, is it me or have they put metallic chips on the propellers?
I think it might be metallic chips.
Because if it is, they've totally mucked that up because they were wooden propellers.
Yeah, you're right. They've done a metallic chip there.
Yeah, they're wooden propellers.
Oh.
Messerschmitt 109s had metal propellers, but Focke-Wulfs didn't.
Well, listeners, don't fall into that trap when you're doing your FW190s.
Mm-hmm.
Next up is a
Another
F4E Phantom Easy Kit. Number of parts, 24.
Oof.
And again, this is designed basically for the younger market. So basically just click together and put some stickers on and off you go. It looks like there's one sprue for the parts plus the upper and lower fuselage, which includes the wings already attached to the fuselage.
And a separate little sprue for your clear pit.
So again, pretty cool idea. Anything that brings the kids in, I reckon it's a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
Last from Revell is a Viking Ghost Ship. Again, this is another easy kit, and again, it's aimed at the younger market. Number of parts, 131, so getting a little bit more complicated. But this comes with some paint that you put on it afterwards, which makes it glow in the dark. It's the Revell Night Colour, which is clear, but when you paint it, and then you put the light on it, you turn the light off, it will glow in the dark.
Ghostly green.
Yeah, pretty cool. All right, that's it from Revell. Next from Mini R. Julian, this is a little bit up your alley, is it not?
Yep.
New 35th scale Grant Mark 1. Full interior kit from Mini Art.
So it's a modification of their recently released Lee.
Mm-hmm.
This is the Grant, which has a slightly different turret.
Correct.
Because I think it's the Grant has the smaller turret, right? Doesn't have the little extra turret that sits on top of the turret.
That's right. Yeah, it's got the cast turret.
Mm.
And this one comes with interior too, doesn't it?
It does. The interior is quite detailed actually too. So for those of you who like doing the interior of your armour, you're going to get a lot of fun out of this, I think.
And with the Grant, with the big opening on the side, the big side door, and you'll be able to at least see a bit of that interior.
You can see,
good point. Yeah, very
quite
good point.
a bit. Mm-hmm. Well, there's two large doors on sort of either side.
Either side, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
But no, it looks all right.
Yeah. Looks very cool. I wonder if the tracks are going to be rubber or not.
Who can tell?
It doesn't matter because it
with the radial
shouldn't
engine.
matter too much because there's a lot of different options in the area for this platform.
Good pickup, Ian. Comes with the Continental R975 radial engine. So you can display that either in the kit or you could even... Gee, it's good enough that to display out of the kit too, isn't it?
Yeah, it's well detailed. Looks well detailed.
Very detailed. Mm-hmm. There we go. Track links there. Workable track links.
All right, yep.
Workable.
Very good.
Very nice.
Next, we have some news from Meng. It's had a bit of chat about this at our club meeting, didn't we? The Wasp flamethrower Jeep
Yeah, Willie's Jeep that looks like
in 1/35th scale.
From Meng.
From Mung.
So it's
a Willie's Jeep that's covered in jerry cans. It's got a flamethrower attachment.
Yeah, and great big tanks at the back.
Yeah. So, yeah, you definitely wouldn't want to be in it if it caught fire.
I got to say, whoever was driving these and operating these should have got a bravery medal just for actually sitting in the damn thing.
Look, they definitely had a big pair of brass ones.
Cannot believe that somebody was crazy enough to come up with this idea. Hey, let's put a flamethrower in the Jeep, and by the way, I'll have all the tanks exposed at the back. No, very, very silly.
But being Mung, it's going to be really good detail.
Yeah, the detail that we're seeing here from the pictures, which I'm assuming are CAD drawings, they're looking goody good. And, you know, Meng have really started to build a very solid reputation for themselves.
Yep.
So
Yeah. I do like their box art too.
their box art looks very cool. As a matter of fact. Yep. All right. Last but not least, Hobby Boss. They're doing a Persian pussycat. No, it's actually a tomcat in Iranian colours and a Rusky BT. So first of all, the Russian tank. It is in 1/35th scale. It's a Soviet BT-2 tank, which was one of their medium ones, early war stuff, and one of their really ugly sort of looking tanks.
Now these things were cool, man.
Oh, come on.
No, seriously, there are videos of these things being jumped, like I don't know,
Dukes
from
of Hazzard style.
yeah,
Cool.
They jump like I don't know, 20 feet in the air and land, and I'm guessing the people inside get knocked out.
Oh, yeah.
So,
These things used to go very, very fast.
okay, so explain this to me, Julian. I'm really intrigued as to how this works. An old movie showing a tank jumping at a great height or off a ramp and then landing on the other side.
Yeah.
How is that an indicator as to how good the tank is?
Well,
in combat?
all the stuff early war was pretty mediocre.
You can jump over the German trenches. That's how good it is done.
Oh, jeez.
You have to remember, like 20 millimeters was considered anti-tank,
You guys.
right?
Yeah, it's true. You're right there. It was.
So you don't need very big gun, and these things were very, very, very fast.
So just think like the old westerns and the cavalry charges, and like you get a whole heap of these BT-2s, and they just rush the German lines and do a big jump over the Germans, and they're in.
Well, it didn't do them too good in the early stages of World War II, did it?
Well, I think a lot of that's problem was too with the military hierarchy didn't do too well for the Russians.
Oh dear.
So to me, I have the BT7, which is almost the same, except maybe a different turret and some other things that are slightly different. They're pretty cool. They're pretty compact. I mean, they're not that small, but they're pretty zippy little tanks.
Model length is 163 millimeters, and width is 64 millimeters. 14 sprues, upper and lower hull, photo etch parts included, and total kit parts are 260, which means the tracks are probably going to be rubber, I would suggest.
One other thing with it is there's a photo etch grill that goes over the back. That's a curved grill, so you're going to have to actually bend a curve. Which is all good if you've got like a bending tool thing that like I bought and you guys bought recently, but otherwise you're going to have to find a piece of dowel or a paintbrush or something.
What sort of radii is it? Is it just a very soft sort of curve?
Maybe like maybe close to a pencil or something like that, maybe.
Because I've had good success with photo etch just using the palm of my hand. So I have my palm out sort of flat and put the part in there and just gently sort of push down into the palm of my hand. And I get a nice sort of curve sometimes on parts that way. So,
look, I don't think you need to worry about it too much because as long as you're able to get it looking right around the edges, it'll look fine. If you look at there's only like I think one surviving example, and that grill is just bashed in.
Yeah, they would be.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the 1/48th scale F-14A Tomcat of the Iranian Air Force. Now, who was it who was building a F-14 Tomcat as well? We're sort of waiting to hear from him. I can't think of the model company now. But I know it wasn't...
Avant-garde models.
Was it? So this is... Well, I didn't even know this was coming out in this scale. So 1/48th scale, I'm sure it's going to grab the attention of some of the Cold War era model builders and also those guys out there who love doing their American iron. This looks to be a reasonable kit from what we can see from impressions of pictures of the sprues. They're saying it's all well formed. So yeah, I'll be interested to see what the build results are like.
It comes with rubber tyres though.
That's interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
Not a fan on rubber tyres on aircraft.
No, because it doesn't allow you to sort of splay them out. Well, yeah. So 27 sprues, upper fuselage, lower fuselage, and tyres, and as Ian said, they're rubber. Total plastic parts count is 390. The model length is going to be 397 millimeters, wingspan 223.
That's minimum. That's fully swept back.
Yep,
if you don't have them out.
And if you have them out, it's going to be 407, so just under half a metre. Bubble-shaped canopy is two-directional slide moulded. So, well, that's interesting. The wing sweep can be varied and optional positioning of flaps as well. The external weapons loadout is going to be an AIM 9x2, 2 AIM 7s, 6 AIM 54s with 2 external fuel tanks. Very limited photo etch part included. Be interesting to see what the aftermarket guys think about this and push out for it as well. So, yeah, I'll be really keen to see what that looks like built, actually.
Yes.
And see some of the reports. Well, that's all I've got for what's new. Or do I?
I've got nothing.
I think I heard something from Blue Ridge and Verifier. Now, they were doing something, a new ship that's coming out.
Blue Ridge does all resin ship models, don't they?
Yeah, they do, but they're in partnership with Verifier as well. And if I can just call it up, in 1/350 scale, in plastic, so it's going to be the USS Salem CA-139.
Oh, cruiser.
So this, let's see, they're going to have it for a release later this year. And that's all I've got. They're saying it's all new tooling and we'll be out at the end of the year. So I want to get some more information on that one. We'll
definitely
get that out. So that'll make a very cool kit, actually. They didn't stay in service for very long, the Salem. I think it was only in service for about, because it came off the line about 44, 45, or just after the war. It was only in service for about 10 years or so before it got paid off. So
all right.
Just shows you how fast ship development moved after World War II.
Definitely.
All right, well, that's all I've got. So I think we'll have a very quick break and then we'll talk about aircraft.
Sounds like a plan, mate.
Back very shortly.
And then you just get some cheap flat black, stick it in the airbrush, and just give it some light dusty coats over the top. So whenever you start sanding, it'll show all the low spots.
Yeah.
And that's where you can pick out where your seam lines are, because you'll start sanding and all of a sudden you have like this black line running through. You go, hang on, that needs to be filled or cleaned up a bit better.
Cool. When you're doing your bare metal, it's also too, you got to pay very close attention to photographs, because it was extremely rare that one aircraft would be just the one single bare metal all over.
Like you see at air shows.
Yeah. And, classic example of that is like a B-52. You look at a B-52 and it's natural metal finish, and it had all the different sort of metal sort of panels, and you could... Even the B-24s from World War II.
B-29s.
Yeah, B-29s, absolutely.
The centre section where your wings are was always like a different colour. It was a slightly bit darker metal than the front and the rear part of the fuselage.
I'd love to know why that was.
Probably different grade of metal, I'd say.
Because that'd be right across the main spar where...
Correct.
Oh, but then all the strength is internal. It wouldn't be external. So I wonder why.
Don't know.
Neither do I.
Check your references.
Yeah, that's right.
So always check your references.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong with reference.
The important thing we forgot to mention is where before we even got to that point, we need to protect something very important on the model before we start doing our painting. And that's the canopy, is it not?
Yes.
So let's talk about techniques in regards to how you do your canopies.
Well, what I always do, I always attach the front canopy, like your front windshield. Mask it off. And then usually with that case, then I always paint the rear canopy or the sliding canopy on a fighter. I always paint that separate. So I'll just mask the whole cockpit off. And that way you know, because a lot of people, you put it together. Yeah. And if you're not really careful with having that sealed properly and you start painting, the paint gets inside the cockpit.
That's
bang.
true. Yeah, I've made that.
Because I've gone fogging and
I've gone the lazy route of just putting the entire canopy closed. But if there's so much as a gap anywhere, like a pinhole size gap, like when you start airbrushing in and around there, like gas and stuff will go through that little hole and it'll fog on the inside. And then you'll end up having to try and break your canopy off to clean the inside of it.
I can tell you, when I did years ago, I did the 48 scale Tamiya Lancaster. And everything was masked up nice. The canopies were everything masked. But what I totally forgot about was there was a slight gap in the bomb bay, inside the bomb bay. So when I was painting it, the gas got up inside there. And then when it looked great, and I started taking the mask off, and then around the front where the radome and that is, oh, not the radome, the bomb aim is blister.
Yep.
It's all foggy.
Oh, no.
And I think, oh, no, because there's all photo etch inside that I built up and everything. It's like I couldn't pull it apart because it just wreck everything. So now I'm having to get these tiny little bits of wire and then like glue tiny little bits of cloth to them and then sit there and just angle them up inside.
You're crazy. Did you really do that?
Yeah, then clean it inside. I was a nightmare, absolute nightmare. Took an extra couple of hours on that build doing that.
Yeah, because there is no other way to do it, to go about that.
Oh yeah, you just got to clean it. Otherwise, you just got this foggy interior.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's no you can't get rid of the fog by putting it in the sun or anything like that. You have to actually wipe it off.
Wipe it off. Yep.
Yeah.
But at least it came off pretty easily. It was just tricky getting, and especially like up inside the cockpit area where you got your seats and your controls and everything. And I think with the Lancaster, I think it's the compass sits up high.
Yep.
So trying not to break those bits off inside while you're polishing the canopy, that was bit of holding the breath and very careful.
Yeah.
Speaking of canopy, so I'll always spray the interior color, like say
Correct.
it's a chromate green, onto the outside of the canopy before I prime. Because I'm not the kind of person to paint it on the inside.
Oh, I've got what you're doing. Yes. Okay. Yep. I understand. Yes.
Right. I mean, I only work in 48 scale, so it's passable. If I was working in 32nd scale, I'd paint the inside color on the inside of the frame.
Yep.
The canopy. But
understand exactly what you're saying.
otherwise, and It's fine. It's in 48 scale and smaller. I think it's fine to just spray it on the outside. That's no big deal.
What about your masking mediums? Do you just get masking tape and you cut it yourself, or
Yeah,
do you,
look, I used to.
I mean, there's so many techniques, and I think we need to sort of step through and have a quick chat about each technique.
Yeah, you can. I'm lazy nowadays. I've gotten old and lazy, and nowadays it's like I'll just have an aeroplane kit. And I'll
If you got to mention, you've also gotten uglier as well.
Well, that's it. But I'll just see if Edward's got a masking kit.
Yeah.
Canopy masking kit, and look, I'll just buy it. So, and look, some of them fit perfectly, some of them don't fit too good, and you just got to adjust them a little bit.
Now, there's a brand where you can buy a whole heap of different shapes, and it suits a whole heap of different canopy.
Yes, I don't know, I can't remember what brand, but you can get like a whole block of mask, and it's just like circles and ovals and so forth, which is great for when you're doing the front canopies.
Yeah, it's going to kill me now until I remember the name of that company now.
But I usually, if I've got a hand mask, then I usually just got a sheet of glass and I'll just lay my masking tape on that and just cut out little squares and little lines and just build up the edges and then fill it in with larger blocks.
Some people actually lay their tape over the
over the canopy frame and then use a pencil or something and just emboss it.
Yeah, and then actually get in there with a knife and cut the bit out that they don't need.
I've
done that.
Yeah, I'm always sus on doing.
I am.
Myself. I'm sussing myself doing that just in case I slip.
I'm not.
And then you run the risk of like putting a big gouge or a line, cut line through the glazing.
The smaller the scale you work, the less the Tamiya tape, or any tape for that matter, is willing to sort of cut cleanly. It has always a little bit of feathering or slight tear to it. Even if I'm
Depends
using...
how sharp your knife is, Dave.
I've used...
The sharpest of knives.
the sharpest of knives.
Ginseng.
I have used scalpels right out of the packet and just gone and used... And even then... Because what it is that the Tamiya tape hasn't got enough tack to tack against the...
the shiny canopy.
Yeah.
That's why I don't do it on the canopy.
Yeah.
I lay down on a sheet of glass and just rub it down with my thumb so it's stuck on the glass, and then I can just use a ruler and a sharp scalpel and just cut any shape I want. Lately I've been using my display circle cutter.
Yep.
Because then you get those nice curves. And it works perfect. Don't have a problem with it. I've seen other people use
the foil thing.
Foil, like it's
adhesive foil.
Yeah,
Bare metal foil.
Bare metal foil.
Yeah.
I know. I saw something online where a guy was actually using. I think it was the foil that came off chocolates.
Oh, okay.
And he actually, it was like the foil was. It was like the wrapper of the chocolate was like out of paper but in a foil.
Yeah.
And so the inner foil bit had adhesive on it.
Oh, really?
And it's really thin. You just put it on there and then just rubbed it in and found out where all his framing was and then just cut it back.
It's interesting.
It's all well and good if you've got like a nice edge, like a very solid frame to work with. But when you've got very shallow framework.
Like some of the older kits.
Yeah.
Or small, like in 1/144th scale.
Or
that's really challenging. 1/350. That's really starting to challenge.
1/350 with me Shikaku. I took out of my collection. And yes, you can buy this, listeners. You can buy a 100 0 paintbrush, and that's what I use to paint my canopy frames.
It's got about one hair on it.
Oh, it's got about 3 hairs on it. Don't be silly. It's got three, Dave. 3, not 1.
One to do the work and 2 to watch.
Yeah, basically. But
yeah. The other way method is getting that rubber stuff that Humbrol have and a couple of other Maskol. Yeah. That's it. And I use that quite successfully in my 400th Emily that I built just recently.
Don't you mean 1 to 144?
What did I say?
1/400.
Oh, don't you dare press that button. You don't know which button it is.
I love that button. Thanks for the new box there, Dave. It's great.
The 1/144th scale. You happy now?
I am.
All right.
I got it out of my system.
But I had to apply it with a toothpick. So you get a toothpick, you dip it in, and then you can just draw it across the canopy. And it worked quite well. And then, of course, when there any sort of splash over bits that I missed after I sprayed the canopy, then the old trick of getting a toothpick and just rubbing it, and you get that excess of paint off the actual
canopy,
glass.
yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And at that scale, you weren't really too concerned if you're going to cause any damage to the glass, I say glass, to the canopy at all, because that's such small scale, you're not really going to notice it anyway.
So this is sort of jumping ahead and then jumping back slightly. But one of our listeners did message us on the Facebook page and say, can you talk about painting your markings?
Yeah.
Yes.
So
yes.
I said to use decals or mask.
Before we get to that,
we'll get to it later.
We'll get to it later.
Yeah, I just want to say because you can get Montex masks.
Montex masks, that's what I was trying to think of.
Yep, I use them quite a bit, and sometimes they'll come with canopy masks.
Yep.
I wouldn't use their canopy.
No, their
masks.
canopy masks leave residue.
Oh, do they really?
Yeah, and if you leave them on too long, good luck getting them off.
Seriously?
Yep.
I haven't tried it. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I don't know, but I know that they are made out of that sort of slightly stretchy, vinyl-y sort of material.
Yep, it's vinyl.
And it's not as good as the
Yep.
paper kind of stuff that
Yep.
Eduard used for with their laser cut masks. So that's why that's just sort of a jump forward and then a jump back to the canopy thing.
Yep.
Yeah, like there are some things like I wouldn't mind if I was doing a P51D and I had to make my own masks. I don't mind that because there's not much there. But if it was a Japanese aircraft that's like a bird cage and every window has curved corners on every single window.
Yep, absolutely.
It's like, no, I'm not going to bother with that.
Or what is it? The Focke-Wulf 189 Yoo-hoo.
And
It's just a glass house with a wing attached.
Absolutely.
yeah, and like if you, even I don't care how good you are, right? Unless maybe you spend a good 6 months masking those windows, there's going to be little tiny, like if you did it yourself, right?
Yep.
There'd be little tiny imperfections in your little straight lines and things like that, and then you get by the time you finish painting and you take it off,
It's a
you'll be
dog
able-
barking at the door.
Yeah, I know.
You can't think he's lost his ball.
I know.
Sorry, Julian.
Yeah. So there'll be little imperfections, and you'll be able to look at that model from a distance and pick them all out. You'll know that something's not quite right there.
Yep, absolutely.
And if you're looking to get like a really good looking model, like having nice canopy work is really key. The extra mile, of course, and I've never done this, and it's something I kind of want to keep in mind and try in the future, is doing on certain planes. You'll see the black seal that runs around the edge of the canopy.
Or the white.
Yeah, that's cool. I really want to do that.
I did that with me Wyvern.
Yeah.
Put the white rim around the glazing. That's just a little bit of extra masking. I like masking.
Yeah. I don't mind masking. It's a Zen thing. It's like PE for me.
And like
Bit of a
scribing
zen.
panel lines. That's Zen. It is. Zen.
And there's a line on this table between on this side is me and Dave, and on that side there's Ian.
I'm always on my own.
On this side, we're not too fond of describing.
No, I like scribing. Very, very, very
But
relaxing.
I suppose it's just like anything. You do it enough, and it does stop scaring you.
It just scares me. It does, because I always go, you're holding it and you're going, zip, whoops, too much.
You don't hold it right.
Well, clearly. Clearly I
You
don't.
don't hold it right. You don't hold it right, Dave.
And then you see people like Paul Budzik, and he'll like scribe freehand.
Oh,
Yeah,
geez,
no,
I don't
that's
know how
one
they
thing.
can do that.
Yeah, no.
How do you do that?
Skill.
Oh, unbelievable.
Skill. But we're digressing.
We are indeed. All right, so we're happy with the canopy side of things now?
That's all masked up.
All masked up, and it's either on or
Cockpit's
not on?
masked up.
Yep. Okay.
We've masked up the wheel wells if you already pre-painted them, or unless you like Julian, you paint your wheel wells later.
Yep.
Yeah.
Everything's ready to rock and roll. You've primed or you don't prime.
Yeah, one prime I wouldn't use. It's Vallejo had this black prime.
Oh, that's
and
terrible
It
stuff.
was terrible stuff.
Look, it's actually not too bad in some applications, as long as you don't plan on ever sanding it, because then it just peels off.
It'd probably be right if you're doing your Orc Army or something and doing just a base black, but I've used it for models or for some of my ships, and then after I put masking tape over it and
Lifts?
the whole thing lifts, and it comes off in like sheets.
Yeah.
It's like almost like a vinyl sort of
Yeah.
sheet that it came off, and it was horrible.
That's terrible.
Yeah. So a lot of people, don't mind it for figures, but
Figures, I think it would work. Yeah, I do.
yeah, but
Yeah.
not for much else.
No.
It's not the kind of primer you use to test your see if your seam lines are gone.
No. It'd be good for wargaming, that type of stuff, but yeah. Right.
Right, so we got all that done.
Yep.
Yeah. Painting it.
Painting it. Well, my first step usually is pre-shading.
Pre-shading, yes.
Pre-shading. Get out your matte black and just paint all the panel lines.
Hang on a second. I've got to deal with this dog. I'll be right back. He's out that door and he's just going, yep.
Bring him in.
Yep. No.
You can be part of the panel.
1 second, stand by. Okay, so I've got the dog all sorted. So,
Yes, pre-shading.
pre-shading.
Yes.
So go ahead and talk us through
Well,
pre-shading.
basically what I do is I just get some flat black
Yes.
and just very nearly pencil line thin lines of just over where all the panel lines are. And I use that usually before I put my main colour on. Some people like to cheat and use Sharpies. No. Use a Sharpie. I will whack you on the knuckles with the blunt end of a spoon.
I used a Sharpie once.
You did. And what happened, Dave? I warned you. And what happened?
I thought I was being so smart.
You did. And I said, don't do it, Dave.
No, yeah.
And what happened, Dave? What happened? Tell everyone what happened.
Well, I painted it and
Looked good, didn't it?
it bled through.
Yeah, it looked good at first.
Painted it again, bled through again. And I can guarantee you this is probably about, 6-8 years ago now. I reckon if I go pick up that kit and paint it again, the Sharpie
bleed
will still
again.
bleed through
Yep.
again. So
Yep.
never use
Never
Sharpies.
use Sharpies. No.
I thought it was a good shortcut. Anyway.
No.
Yeah.
Well, people have actually used a Sharpie before they primed in black, and it's still come through the paint afterwards.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. This stuff is wicked. It is.
Just use paint.
Yep.
Paint's better.
Yep.
And the thing with using a pre-shading, I find that it accentuates the panel lines without having to use a wash through 'em.
The other thing too about is not just to use black, is to have a good look at your photos, and you can even just use a darker colour, not necessarily a black. So if you were doing, for example, a US naval modern jet, or Vietnam era type thing, I'd suggest not to use a black. 'Cause I think that'd be a bit too harsh. I'd look at using just some darker colours for the panel lines, so you get a bit more of a what's the word I'm looking for? Well, not so much of a harsh sort of definition.
Yep, not much of it.
Yeah.
Not too much of a contrast.
Yeah.
Another thing I've seen, I haven't done it myself, I would like to try it one day, is people also, once they do the pre-shading, they also do like a marble effect.
I haven't
With
tried
a
the marbling
darker
effect.
cover.
Yeah.
So that's
Before they lay the colour on, and that gives
Yep.
you like that more splotchy look of your paint.
Yeah. So I do quite a bit of that, and I'm very much a beginner in it. Even though I've probably done quite a few kits now, I'm just still not very, very good. It probably works better in 30-second scale than 48th. But basically the idea is you prime it in black, and then you get your color, and you do tiny little sort of splotches and squigglies and stuff like that. And the idea is that the tighter you go, the smaller you go, the better it looks.
Yes.
And the idea is it sort of gives the sort of different variations in color, and it sort of gives a little bit of the sort of realism of like weathering. It adds to the weathering effects, but also is a bit of an impression for the what do you call it? The randomness of the surface of the plane, right?
Yes.
Because they're never like they never look like they're milled out of aluminium.
No,
there's
they're not.
always that stretched skin
Correct.
type effect. I mean, it may not necessarily be the the oil canning effect. No. It's not that, but it's an additional effect.
The thing that I've always, because I've never done the marbling, so I've always wanted to have a crack at it. But the people who have done it say the hardest thing is to do it randomly,
Yes.
because the human mind wants to do patterns or straight lines, and to make the marbling effect really come through, you've got to be really random in little sort of build-up that you're doing all over.
A good idea is to have a few beers beforehand.
Yeah, or whatever else your drug might be in, and have a tackle of it. Yes.
Yes.
That's actually something that I don't have too much trouble with.
Well, having a
What
beer.
beer?
No. I have one right now, but it's no. That's not what it is. I tend to like overall, I tend to almost work in like a figure eight movement.
Yep.
As small as I can, but I also sort of just go, I I don't try to keep it neat.
So randomness comes easy to your kind, is what you're saying.
I guess so. I mean, it's sort of halfway between a sort of moving things in a figure eight and just sort of almost like just sort of rattling your hand a little bit.
So unlike the rest of the population, your mind is not well ordered as the rest of us perhaps sitting in the studio.
Oh, I'm probably more ordered, if anything. But I don't know. It's just something that I seem to be okay at.
Okay.
I wouldn't say I'm great, but it's not something I struggle with.
Yep. Right. So yeah, we got that done. Yeah. Painting.
Well,
what colour do you do first?
Hang on, but before we move on,
okay,
I still want to talk a bit more about this pre-shading, because is it something you're going to do to aircraft from World War II all the way through, or is it just something that's specific to certain eras of...
No, I think it works on all aircraft.
All aircraft, yeah.
Do you think so?
Yep.
I don't,
But it only works... It might work on ships, but it works better on aircraft, and it doesn't work on tanks, in my opinion.
You know, I don't know, because I'll look at, say, a Spitfire in Battle of Britain colours, and looking at the top wing and the fuselage, I reckon you're hard pushed to sort of really go and support an argument as to why you're doing pre-shading.
Accentuates the panel lines.
Yeah, but I don't see it. I don't see it in the Spitfires, even the Messerschmitts. I don't see it. But in the things like the American bombers and the British bombers, then yes, I can see it in the photographs and the colorized photographs and the remaining aircraft that we see in museums now and those that fly. I just can't see it in the stuff from World War II. I just don't know. Is it because perhaps they weren't used enough to get that? I don't know.
Cameras weren't great back then, and a lot of the photos we have were propaganda type stuff, right? Lots of guys, like you'll have 5 guys positioned over a plane all working on it at the same time. Not really a thing that happened too often. Yeah,
but you still got the object there, and the object isn't going to be, it's like if you look at World War II ships, you see oil canning, and you can see it there. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not hidden, and it's not hidden from view. Mm-hmm. It's just there plain as day. Even modern day ships, you see that now. Mm-hmm. Modern day aircraft, yes, I can see pre-shading. Well, Vietnam era, Israel-Arab Air War, all that. Yeah, I can see all that for those type of era of jets. I can see the pre-shading and where it's needed. Some of the World War II stuff, I just can't. And
I can.
And okay.
Maybe I'll send you a few photos of some examples then.
You know what? You probably would be able to send me some photos of some war-weary.
Well, one photo I came across when I was doing my Helldiver is a very distinctive one where it's very clearly sort of mottily looking and worn on the upper wings, but not outside of the wing fold.
You're probably right with the American carrier aircraft of World War II.
But see, the American carrier aircraft of World War II had access to full paint shops. They were getting repainted whenever they needed to. They still got shipped and things like that, but it's as far as repainting goes, they had greater access to it than anyone else.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that repainting the aircraft while they're out on the carriers was pretty low down on the totem pole of things to do. Just my thoughts.
Well,
anyway, it's just a discussion though, isn't it? So, yeah.
Yep.
In any case, probably getting back to the techniques and things.
Post-shading then.
That's later. That's after painting.
Oh, okay. All right then. We'll talk about painting.
Okay.
All right.
So, I suppose like painting one color is no big deal.
Yes.
I prefer the next most complicated one up from that would be, say, one color on top, one color on the bottom.
Yep.
Right?
What colour do you use first? I always go lightest colour first, and then
I do.
Dark colour last.
Because if you spray a lighter colour over and like you've done a freehand kind of demarcation line between the line between the two, it generally looks weird when you've got little speckles of the lighter colour over a darker colour.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it does. Yes, whereas vice versa, it doesn't look so bad.
Yeah, it looks more correct for whatever reason.
With the feathering, you mean?
Yeah, the feathering. Yeah. the edge of that spray pattern.
Well, with your camouflage too, you got to look at whether it's a soft camouflage, a demarcation between the colours, or a hard line demarcation, because
That's
that's
right.
going to determine actually how you're going to do that.
Yes.
Yep. As an example,
Yep.
I built my IL2 Sturmovik, and you can tell which factory they came from, whether they had a boot, like a leather boot, over the tail wheel or not.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah.
Oh.
And so one factory would do it hard edged,
Yep.
and one would do it soft edge. And there's 3 factories: Zavod 1, 2, and 3.
Well, that's original in Soviet way of naming of factories, isn't it?
Well, it's probably me. It's probably Translator's factory. I'm not sure.
It is. Well, tractor factory number 1, tractor factory number 2. That's the way they did it back then.
That's it.
In the good old USSR.
Yes.
Yeah. So I did hard edge on that particular aircraft
Yep.
because I did my homework and I knew
Yep.
that that's the type.
Yep.
I used that vinyl tape that Tamir has. You can get surprisingly tight curves with it.
Yeah.
The bendable tape.
Yeah.
Yes, the white tape.
It was good enough for 48 scale. I don't know if I'd use it on
72.
On 72. It might be a bit too tight for that.
I always used to use paper masks.
Mm.
Just draw out the camouflage on paper, cut it out, and if it's
Stick
a
down.
feathered edge, I raise it off with a couple of blobs of blue tack. So when I run the paint over it, it goes underneath the paper and gives you the feathered edge. If it's a hard edge, just up against it.
Mm.
As long as you don't pour your paint on too thick,
Yeah.
you're laughing. If you pour your paint on too thick, well, that's when it starts sticking to
Yeah, and running everywhere.
it actually sticks to the colour underneath it, and that's when you're in all sorts of trouble.
Yep.
Yeah, well, that's the ultimate one, isn't it? Like, well, penultimate, actually. So you've got like a camouflage, like say 2, maybe 3 colors,
Yep.
and the next step up from there is your Luftwaffe modeling, I suppose.
Yes.
That looks so hard to do. I've never done that.
Oh, modelling's not. You basically with modelling, you got to thin your paint.
Yeah.
Right
Have
down.
it really thin so it's nearly translucent. And use the smallest needle in the airbrush you can find, and just very carefully, with not much pressure coming out, just very carefully, just do those little mottles.
Yeah, like your paint should almost look like dirty water, slightly dirty water.
Because with the
Very little
modelling,
paint.
it's always a darker colour over the top of either a blue grey or a light blue.
Yeah.
So you don't need much paint on there to get the effect.
Mm.
And when you look at the photos of them in the field, that it wasn't thick.
Yeah.
Well, you see a lot of the photos up close, and you can actually see where people have just scratched it with their thumbnail, and the paint's come off.
Well, a lot of that stuff was applied to fuel anyway.
Yeah, same as Japanese.
Yeah.
Japanese aircraft when they painted that olive green over the top of the bare metal, that wasn't very thick.
No.
That just scratched off really easily.
Yeah, blew off in the wind.
Yeah, pretty much.
It blew off in the wind.
It did. I mean,
You
look
look
at
at-
the leading edges of their wings.
Don't anyone cough near the planes.
Yeah.
Paint falls off it.
You find with a lot of the Allied aircraft were a lot of, probably the most of them were hard edged camouflage because they used rubber mats.
Oh, did they now?
Yeah, they did rubber mats, and that's what they used for masking. Just drape the rubber mat.
Oh, this is the RAF, was it?
Yeah, and same as America with I know the P-40s, they all painted with rubber mats.
Mm.
And if they wanted to alternate the paint scheme, they just flip the mats over.
Well, it makes sense because the rubber mat would just flop over and follow the form of the aircraft.
Yeah, the contour of the aircraft, yeah.
You know what? It never occurred to me how they did that.
Yeah, rubber mats, mate.
Yeah. Well, there you go. You learn something every day.
Yeah.
And I've just been educated.
You've been educated, Dave, yes. So that's pretty much with the painting, isn't it?
Well,
Pretty much covered most of it.
Coming back to this ongoing topic that I'm covering, the paint your own insignias
yes.
rather than decals.
Yes.
So they actually recommend that you paint the insignias before you do your main coats of colour.
Sorry, what?
So before you actually put
that makes sense.
your actual camouflage or whatever colours of the plane down,
Yeah.
you paint the insignias first.
But then you're going to mask them off while you're doing your camouflage.
That's right.
Well, that's a pain in the ass.
Well, some people, because usually, like, say, for example, you got your American style insignias.
Yep.
Blue and white.
Yeah.
Right? What you don't want is to end up with a visible, like a 3-dimensional white edge that you can visibly see around.
Yep.
Because essentially if you paint your, say it's on a Navy aircraft,
Yep.
and you've done your glossy sea blue, then you've done your insignia blue, and then your white, you can see them as almost like a pyramid of flat pieces of
I reckon
colour.
it'd be even worse with like a 2-colour camouflage.
Mm.
It'd be even worse.
Yeah, because that white is hard to sort of, you'd have to bang on heaps of it
Correct.
to cover up the dark camouflage underneath. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I reckon you would probably get away with just doing the white first.
Yeah.
Mask that off,
But
then paint your
Yeah,
camouflage,
yeah.
then mask it again
Yep.
and do your blue.
And it'd be easier just to cover that one white
Correct,
part
yeah.
than the whole emblem.
So the one mistake that the worst mistake you can make in that scenario, right, is you paint your plane, then you paint the white, and then you paint the blue, because then you'll actually see the white outline three-dimensionally underneath the blue, almost like you're seeing layers of a cake, right?
Yeah, okay.
It's just a thing that can pop up. It depends on how thick you lay your paint on, what kind of paint.
And I
you're
think that's what
using.
you can be cognizant of when you're doing it with that view in mind at the end goal, you know?
Yeah. So that's the thing. Other thing when you're spraying white is because white is fairly transparent. You're going to end up throwing quite a lot on, and it actually builds up a lot thicker than you think it will.
Well, see, white's not a colour. White's a shade.
Well, I always,
Jeez, all right.
It's not.
especially with camouflaged aircraft, if I'll do like a British or an American aeroplane, is I'll make sure I'll paint the white before I decal. And that way the decal's sitting on a white background rather than sticking the decal straight onto 2 different colours. Because you stick a decal, 9 out of 10 times, if you stick it on 2 different colours like a green and a brown, you're going to see a colour variation in your decal.
Yeah, you are.
That's why a lot of decal companies now also bring out a white backing decal.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
to
the
lay down
2-piece,
first.
Yeah.
the 2-piece thing.
Yes,
Oh,
which makes a really thick decal.
Yeah. So here's the thing. So to decal or to paint?
Well, myself personally, I'm a bit. If it comes to Japanese aircraft, well, it's definitely paint. American ones, I'll tend to put like a white background down first and then decal. Same as this British aircraft, because it's just a pain having to do all those separate circles. When it comes to like, especially German aircraft, one of my favourite things on German aircraft is painting the RV bands. And I've now, personally, in my own opinion, I've got that down to where I'm happy is I've got down to a good art. Like I can now even do like a little bar that runs through. I did a it was a Focke-Wulf A9 in 48 scale, and I had the yellow and red RV band, and then I had like a red RV, was it red or no, yellow RV band that went through the center, a stub marking, which is like just a horizontal line, but it had a tiny little black outline, which I even masked up and painted that on it, and it looked fantastic when it was all done. I was really happy. It's like, oh, great. I've mastered that now. I can move on to the next step.
I think decal's always, the back of my mind, I've always got a worry, is it going to go down properly? Is it, going to settle and all the rest of it? And
I
whereas if you're painting
yeah,
your markings,
because you don't want to come unstuck on the decals when it's so late in the build.
Exactly right, yeah.
You don't want to trip at the finish line.
Yep.
Yeah. So, for example, with most Japanese aircraft, they come from Japanese manufacturers, which means they have Japanese decals which are super thick. So I'd rather sidestep all that and paint them, especially since they're so simple, right? It's just a circle. And
Sometimes with a white outline.
Yeah, and it also means I get to pick my shade of red, whereas some decal manufacturers will do a really
Bright red.
almost orange
Yep.
or fluorescent kind of red. It doesn't look right at all.
And painting looks a lot more natural than decals anyway. Yeah, I mean, no matter how hard you try, especially when you're getting up to the larger kits like the 132nd scale and 124th scale, you're going to get this, a bit of a sheen or an angle. You're going to see that it's a decal and not paint.
Same as a lot of the modern kits now where they put all individual rivet marks on them. You lose most of that under a decal.
Yeah.
Whereas if you paint it, it's
there.
there. It's
absolutely.
Another thing is because you're most likely to pick up that it's a decal on the wings because you've got like a curvature that's always going to be in the light.
Yes.
Right? So even if you can't, even if you have to persevere with crappy decals that are too thick or whatever, if you can, try and paint
Just paint those ones on top.
Yeah, your upper wing ones. Yeah.
So we're coming back to that thing where you said about when you do the wheel wells, you only paint what you can see anyway. So you do the same with the decals on top of the aircraft. Just paint, yeah.
I mean, like I know people like want to show off their aircraft. They'll take photos of it upside down and all around and all that sort of thing, and that's all well and good. But when it's just sitting there,
you're not going to see it.
Yeah.
With modern aircraft, though, you got all those tiny little no step decals and everything. You got no choice but to go with them. You've got to use them. You've got to use them.
But then again, with modern aircraft, most modern aircraft, they're all one colour anyway. One or two colours, so you don't have to worry about colour differentiation.
Now, with Montex masks, sometimes they do provide decals with them as well. I did my IL2 with Montex masks, and it came with a 22 decal. Beautiful decal. It went down so well and absolutely disappeared once I put flat coat over it. Could not tell that it was a decal at all.
Wow.
It was a really nice decal.
Yep.
One of the best decals I've ever used, and unfortunately it only came with 2 of them. It's like, they should get in the decal game as well.
Yeah, you should do.
But the reason why they provided that as a decal is because it has it was a 22, it was white, but it had a little, I think it was red or silver pin outline.
Yep.
And you can't paint that. Not to such a consistent edge all the way around. So that worked out really, really well. So if you're going to go for Montex masks, just bear that in mind. They're not always all masks.
And there's quite a few different aftermarket companies now that supply masks for different insignia and aircraft now as well. Anyway,
Well,
so
then you got
your range.
Was it Mike Grant Decals?
Yeah,
he does decals for camouflage for Italian aircraft.
Yeah.
So instead of painting those weird camouflage, which I reckon an Italian aircraft would be difficult because you got a light brown, like a sand colour, then you got this brown blob with a green outline, and it's all these blobs are all over it.
Yeah, that's right.
Imagine masking them and painting them up, it'd drive you bananas.
It would.
That's why my Savoia, was it not Savoia, me Mackie 202 still sitting in the cupboard.
I've actually
look at that and I go, no, the paint job, that's just going to drive me nuts.
I have seen that done, and it came first in a competition.
Yeah.
Almost probably purely because of that reason.
Paint job,
and every single one of those was perfect.
Now,
some people have got more patience than me.
Before we move away from the decals, the one thing we forgot to say was...
You've got to clear coat the bugger.
Yes, absolutely. Go for it.
When you're finished, make it as shiny as you can.
Before you put the decals on.
Correct.
Yes.
I don't bother.
Oh. Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Some people who probably care more than me, but still don't want a gloss, they'll actually buff it with polish it with a t-shirt or something, just as long as it's smooth. Mind you, the paint that I use is pretty smooth. I paint with Mr. Paint, and that
lacquers,
finish,
they always finish smooth.
Yeah, they're really smooth.
So the whole reason why we're putting the gloss or getting the highly polished finish on it is to achieve 2 things. Number 1, help the decal sit properly on the kit, and 2, to get rid of silvering.
Correct.
And silvering is?
Air trapped underneath the carrier film of the decal.
Yep.
And a good way of getting rid of silvering, if you're worried about that, is just trim your decal back as far as you can. Trim the carrier film back to where the printing is.
You can't do that with your stencils though.
No. Stencils you can't. No.
Yeah.
But larger decals, yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Trim them as far back as you can before you apply.
Yeah, and stencils are going to be the one that'll make you come unstuck with the silvering most of all.
Yep.
So if you're building an American plane like a P-47 that has quite a bit of stenciling, or even worse than that, an F4 Phantom.
Yep.
You better have your deckling down straight.
Yes.
It's true. Too true.
I mean, what is it? The Airfix 1/72 scale Phantom, the Royal Navy version. It's got something like 100 decals just to go.
Oh, look, I know. Look, I think it was Revell made that big Antonov, massive Antonov transport plane, and the decal sheet was, I think it was an A3 sheet. Oh, you know how big an A3 sheet is? Yeah. It's double the size of a standard A4 sheet.
It's huge.
It was the biggest deck, and it was for a 1/72 scale aircraft.
Yeah.
Oh, a friend of mine bought one, and I've gone, you're nuts. There must have been about 400 decals to put on that thing. It's like, seriously?
Unbelievable.
I may end up building an F4 in the near future, so we'll see how we go.
What scale?
A 48.
48, of course. Julian only builds 48.
Navy or Air Force?
The green brown.
Air Force.
Air Force.
US Air Force.
Yeah.
So the decals are down.
Yep.
We can now go and put another gloss coat
Yes.
on top.
Always put another gloss coat over the top of the decals.
And we do that to seal it and also to...
Make a uniform glossness.
Correct. To try and hide the
There's
decal under
nothing
it.
and look, when I was younger, I used to get trapped doing this all the time. Put the decals on and then just put a flat clear coat over the top. And when you're working on that, the decal is never the same shine as the paint you're putting it on. And when you put that final clear coat over, or when you put the final flat clear coat over the top, it stands out. You can see straight away, oh, there's a decal there. Whereas if you put a clear coat over the top, as you said, it seals it, but also makes everything at one uniform shineness. So
Yeah, because your flat coat isn't completely perfect.
Correct.
And probably never will be, because otherwise you end up with
But
like white
before we
Yes.
put the flat coat on, we can now play with some weathering, can we not?
Usually washes.
Yes.
Always and when it comes to washes, like, yes, back in the early 90s, everyone just put panel lines. Every panel line on the aircraft was washed. I did it myself, yes, because it was the rage back then. Everyone did it. Now, the only washes I put on are like on movable parts, like ailerons, rudder, and so forth. They get a wash. Access panels, which, as you can see in aircraft, there is a bit of a gap. Yes, put them on there as well. But panel lines, don't touch them with a wash at all.
Yep.
Refuse to.
I wash everything.
You wash it all.
Yep, but I do different colors for different areas.
Right, yep.
Right. So I want to have a color that's very, very close to the color that the paint is, but just a little bit darker.
Yep. And just a suggestion to everyone: don't use black.
No, don't
Use
use black.
dark grey.
Yep.
Because black is just too stark.
Just
You need a
stark,
dark grey.
sticks right out.
And I
Yeah.
used to make my own washes.
You used to
Out
make
of
them out of
inks.
Indian ink, didn't you?
Yes, used to. I found a bottle, and I still got it. It's like a, I don't know, 500. Oh, sorry, probably a 30 ml bottle of white Indian ink. And like, I didn't know this stuff even existed.
Yeah.
White Indian ink. Oh, great! Put a couple of drops of black with it, and bang, you have this
Perfect.
beautiful dark grey. The problem with Indian ink, if you get a bit of bleed, good luck getting it off because it stains. Whereas nowadays with washes, I use oil paint. And that way I can make my own colour with oil paint.
Yep.
And because I paint with acrylics, if I get a bit over, just a bit of terps on
Just wipe it off.
a Q-tip or a cotton bud or a soft rag and
See you later.
wipe it off the edge, it's finished. Then once that's done, then I can give it a flat clear coat.
Lovely.
My washes, I prefer the the regular enamel washes, AK Interactive,
Yep.
MIG Ammo, that sort of thing.
But don't they how do they react with the lacquers?
No, nothing touches lacquer.
Yeah.
It's immutable. The only way you're touching lacquer is if it's lacquer
Because
also.
didn't you have trouble with one of your submarines? What was that? Was that lacquer
Yeah,
or was
I
that
did.
something else?
No, it wasn't a lacquer.
Oh, it was enamel.
It was.
Yeah, never use those AK stuff on enamel paint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't enamel paint. It was an acrylic, and when I was putting the wash on, I was a bit too judicious with the amount of
White spirit.
yeah, and the brush was a bit too
Stiff.
and hard, and
Oh, okay, so it softened it up, and then you.
Basically ground the paint off.
yeah, it did. Look, I've been sandblasted.
Yeah, I had to repaint a bit of my Lexington because of that. Because I actually used the rattle can. I decanted the rattle can haze grey, and then I airbrushed it on, and it all went down fine. But when I went to put washes on, I found that it was wearing away my paint, and I was going down to the primer layer.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I think it's because those aren't necessarily very lacquer, and they're probably a bit more enamel than anything.
All right.
Possibly, yeah.
Which is interesting, but yeah, I mean that's the only thing I can use to explain it, because a lacquer shouldn't be affected by white spirit like that.
Yeah. So once you got all that done, then you can think, are you going to post shade?
Yes.
Something
I don't post shade. I never have. I'm not
well-
keen on it.
I can think of one area where I'm gonna start post shading.
What's that?
So when you've got fabric surfaces, sometimes they won't give you much of a 3-dimensional sort of bulge where the framework is.
Yep.
Hopefully, and the sort of recess areas what I want to do is like the actual framework areas. I'll put down tiny. I want to put down
thin strips of tape.
Thin strips of tapes, and then lightly.
Yes, yeah, that'll work. Yes,
yeah.
but you see some people they post shade the whole aircraft, and it's like. Oh,
define what post shading is. Just
it's
for everybody
basically
out there.
post shading is like putting a light smoky color over the top of your panel lines.
Yeah, it's kind of like pre-shading, except for on the outside of your paint.
Yeah, rather than on the inside. And that's just scary because you've already painted, you've deckled, everything's ready, and all of a
This
sudden
is where it can go wrong.
this
horribly.
is where you can completely destroy your finish, and that's why
Even though
I
you've got the
refuse to do
decals
it.
down beautifully and everything's perfect.
You can totally destroy your kit post shading if you're not careful. But some people have got it down pat, and they do a marvelous job, and it looks great.
Well, basically, you want to thin your paint down until it's more as thin down, if not more thin down, than when you're doing a mottling.
Plus, you need a really steady hand so you can do those long panel lines. You don't want to get like a bit of a shake happening because then you're going to get like a straight line with a little wobble in it.
Or a splutter coming at your airbrush while you're doing it. Oh, no.
Well, you could always move the plane rather than the airbrush. You hold your airbrush fixed, and then you pull the plane past it. That's one way of doing it.
I can still see mistakes happening.
Oh, me
It's
too.
going to be a
That's why I
screaming
don't
mess.
do it. It's
Well,
like-
It'll be a screaming mess
Well,
afterwards.
the idea
tomorrow.
is that you've got your paint so thinned out that it won't matter if you do it.
I
if you muck
understand
up
what you're
one-
saying
one
perfectly.
pass.
I'm just saying that my skill level isn't up there to achieve what you're trying to.
I reckon it's just a matter of you just haven't thinned your paint enough. Like if you can always thin it,
Oh, I've thinned my paint.
you can always thin it a lot further.
Yeah.
To it, I mean, like to a point. Some paints don't take the thinning so well. Like for example, Tamiya paint will thin further with lacquer thinner than it will with alcohol.
Yeah, but it's it's the process and way you're telling me to do it. It's like telling me to do that when I'm doing a boot line on a ship, for example. There's just no way. I'd be. There we go. It goes past the airbrush there, and no.
Yep.
It'd be a mess.
Yes.
It'd be an absolute mess.
So, but
I just couldn't do
that's
it.
post shading anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not that big of a fan of it, to be honest. But I'm sure it has its individual uses,
Yes,
like
yes.
everything. I mean, like some people will adhere heavily to a certain technique, but to be honest, I mean, almost every technique is acceptable if you use it in the right fashion.
Yes, totally agree.
And there's a heap of techniques we haven't even touched on, like salt technique, the Vegemite technique.
Yes, the old Vegemite technique.
Oh, look, the Vegemite technique is identical to the
Salt technique.
to the what do you call it? Doing little dobs of masking,
Mask off, yeah.
that
Yep.
sort of stuff.
Yep.
Liquid mask,
It's exactly what you're trying to achieve, yeah.
except you haven't put bloody sticky food all over it.
True.
But that's more going into the total advanced
Yep.
modelling.
Yep.
We could cover that probably another episode.
Sure. Well, last point we need to talk about then is displaying it afterwards.
Well, weathering.
You've forgotten the weathering.
Well, no, that's
Subtle weathering.
That's a huge can of worms.
Yeah.
because like the entire
Do you
market,
weather or do you not weather?
the entire market is just flooded with so many
Yeah.
different
But
methods.
what I
and
do is
products.
like, basic weathering to me, especially on a Second World War aircraft, exhaust stains
Yep.
and probably a bit
Oil.
of oil, bit of oil dribble, and some dirt and mud stains on the underside of the wings where the undercarriage is.
Because most aircraft in World War II operated off soft airstrips.
Correct. And the other thing I always, and we come back to my favourite thing of tinting the paints. Basically, if I'm doing an aircraft that's based in the desert, I'll add a bit of white to my clear, my final flat clear coat, and I'll only hit the very top edges, like the top of the fuselage, the top of the wings, top of the tailplane.
What type of effect are you trying to get by doing that?
More a bleached colour effect.
Yep.
It's been out in the sun and it bleaches it out. And
Yep.
just a
Well,
couple of drops
you've
of
act-
white.
You've actually touched on a thing that I forgot to talk about.
What's that?
Like one of the advantages of painting your markings is that you have the option of doing a faded, super faded aircraft.
Yeah, good point,
Yeah.
Julian.
Like for example,
Yeah.
those Russian aircraft that have been
Yep.
left to rot out and stuff.
And chipping as well, and yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the other good thing about doing it that
Yep.
way.
But basically, that's for basic weathering. If you just want to have your plane that looks decent, yes, that's all I do. But then as you can go further and do, as you said, the paint chipping, the salt techniques, and basic weather beaten look.
Well,
That's-
there's also some sort of finishing, for details that are sort of universal that I think should be touched on. Your rubber blacks, you can
Never
actually
paint them black.
never paint it black. In fact, you can go pretty grey, pretty like heavily into almost the middle grey area, and it still looks like rubber.
Same as blacks.
Exhaust, like the metal part of the exhaust, a lot of people do it rusty. It's usually not rusty.
No, that's
It's
right.
burnt metal, not rusty
Yep,
metal.
yep.
That's right.
It's rusty if it's been sitting there. And another one, a lot of people make the mistake when you look at like Bristol's aircraft, like the Blenheims and the Beaufighters, and they paint the ring on the cowl, and they always paint it a brass colour,
Oh, copper.
colour. It isn't. That was rust because they were steel and they rusted.
And
So they weren't a copper colour. They were actually a rust. They actually were rusted.
Wow.
unless you're doing an early one, like a fresh one, in which
then
case
you
it's
got
like
a
almost
steely colour.
yeah, it's like a grey,
Yeah,
greyish metal colour.
correct. Untreated steel. So they got hot
And-
and they
Doing your model with no weathering whatsoever is perfectly acceptable as
that's
well.
it. You have factory fresh if
Yeah,
you want.
absolutely.
Now you were going to talk about what displaying.
Well, that's your last thing. So you've done all this fantastic
Don't
work.
hang them up on your ceiling. Don't hang them on your ceiling. They get dusty. They look tatty, and it's not how you display aircraft.
The big push from the European shows, and I think we spoke about this a couple of years ago, right in our early episodes, is that the push now is to display your aircraft actually on a stand, as if it's sitting on an airfield or a runway, or even display in flight.
Great idea. Problem is you run out of room pretty quick.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
You run out of room real quick.
Well, you don't have to always. I mean, like it depends on like where you're displaying it. If you're displaying it in your little hobby room where no one really goes, just leave them off and have a base or a stand kind of thing that you can use to put them on when you go to take them out of that room, right?
Yep.
If you go to show someone, or
Yep.
take it to a model
Well,
show.
you could have one stand that could be generic for about 4 or 5 different aircraft, couldn't you?
Well, what I've seen is, I can't remember where I saw it, but a person had basically, they had like a cabinet, and what they did is on one of the shelves, they just laid down like a sheet of that fake grass, scale fake grass.
Yep.
The whole thing. It's like it looked like an airfield, and they just put all the aircraft on it.
Cool.
It's great.
Yeah, it does.
Another thing I've been seeing lately too is people actually hanging them from the wall.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that.
I think for you,
I think,
I think that's a
it's
cop out for people who don't have enough room.
yeah, but you think how
Well-
all those things. Myself, I put them under glass because
dust.
dust.
Dust is a big killer.
Especially when you got open canopies, it gets inside the canopy and it gets on top of the glazing, and then you got to take the glazings off after a few years and wash them and clean them up and get them nice and shiny again. And
Well, Hong Kong models with their B-17
Yeah, I was going to
actually had a wall-mounted bracket so you could actually hang your aircraft from the wall.
Yeah.
Well, in that scale, 132, B-17 is going to take up a lot of real estate.
Yeah,
In a cabinet.
that's usually when you make a coffee table.
yeah, exactly.
Incorporate it into a coffee table.
Yeah, I mean, like that's the thing, right? If you're buying a bird that big,
Yeah,
you better know where to put it.
yeah, exactly. Don't do what I did and buy an aircraft carrier and then realise once you got it home it won't fit in your display cabinet.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, I bought the Chinese Liaoning and I haven't built it because I got nowhere to put it because it won't fit in the cabinet I got.
Or better still, you're looking to, try and sell it because you got nowhere to put it.
Well, I might have to do that. That might have to be an answer.
Yep.
It'll break my heart to do it.
Plug
But,
it
The,
off.
the only problem with that is that the person buying it has the same dilemma.
Yeah.
well,
Just
Buyer beware.
pass the problem off.
yeah, buyer beware.
Too true.
All right, so I think we've just about hit that one on the head.
Yeah, they pretty much hit the basics. If there's
Yeah.
anything we've missed, just let us know.
And that certainly is the basics we've touched on too.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
that's right.
there's lots of YouTube stuff out there. Get yourself into a model club. Feed off what other guys are doing. Go to model shows. Ask guys how they got their different techniques.
Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Absolutely. And people are only more than happy to sort of stand and share and talk your ear off about how they did something.
Yeah, because there's not really anyone out there who's trying to hoard their secrets.
No, that's right.
And if
that's one of the
they are,
things.
they're a pillock anyway.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I love about this hobby. Everybody's quite happy and willing to share how they did things and got to where they were.
Mm-hmm.
Although, on Facebook, you be careful. There's a couple of sort of conversations you can sort of key into, and there's some really dumb sort of suggestions out there. But if you know the people to look at or who to follow, you can, And I said YouTube is just as a treasure trove of.
Oh, definitely.
And you can actually see the results.
That's right.
As
really
they're
good.
being done, yes. Totally agree.
Very good. So I'll be seeing you guys on Friday night.
Friday night, Saturday,
Yes,
Sunday,
Saturday
and Monday.
Yeah, absolutely. So
We'll be at the Melbourne Model Expo.
and hope to get some very special guests on as well. So we'll see.
See what we can wrangle and
Absolutely.
drag in there.
In the meantime, if you need some more podcasting goodness, don't forget to go and listen to our friends Stuart and Anthony over at the Scale Model Podcast.
Yes.
They
Great
publish
bunch of
every
guys.
every off week to us. They got a great little show over there that'll keep you busy while you're waiting for our next installment from our show. Parting words, gentlemen. Let's start with you, Ian.
Enjoy your hobby. Have fun.
Julian.
Yeah, right. What he said.
What he said, Governor.
All right, guys. I'll catch you on the weekend, and everybody else out there, we'll probably have a show out later on in the week. Actually, I might do one, and then because the show normally pumps out about 3 hours worth of shows, and I'll break them up a bit. So anyway, watch this space.
Will do.
We'll be back. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.